Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate everyone's comments and thoughts and the support for Palestinians as they continue to endure genocide in Gaza. And the genocide will now more than likely be overlooked as Israel and the United States escalate into a full-blown armed conflict with Iran. Before we talk about today's video and what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to be mentioning a lot of facts. And normally in my videos, I don't feel the need to talk about this because I'm saying things that are factually correct and aren't just my opinion and things that I believe. But today it's a little different. Today I am going to be hypothesizing what I believe is the current trajectory for the United States, Israel, Iran, and the entirety of the Middle East. And I just want to point out that while a lot of the things I'm saying I can back up with evidence and I can back up with fact, the end conclusion of this video is overall my opinion, and I am not an expert in any way in the Middle East, in geopolitics, or in anything of the sort. I'm well educated and well read, and I know a lot about a lot of things when it comes to those subjects, but I just want to say clearly, this is my opinion. If you agree with me or you disagree with me, that's fine. I just want to let you know where I think we're currently going and where a lot of the experts that I listen to and read also believe that we're going. Today we're going to be talking about the escalating conflict between Iran, Israel, and the United States, and we're going to be answering the question of what's really going on here and why does it matter. The recent strikes on Iran, many of which hit residential areas, have raised serious concern about civilian casualties and the potential for a wider regional war. While official death tolls are still being debated, reports indicate dozens of civilian deaths, with infrastructure damage in areas that had little to no military presence. This escalation didn't come out of nowhere. It's the latest development in a long pattern of tension, where the United States backs Israeli military action, has its own military action, and in the meantime, Iran is cast as the aggressor. But to understand this, we need to look at the history of Western intervention destabilizing the Middle East. In 1953, the Eisenhower administration orchestrated a coup in Iran, overthrowing the democratically elected prime minister because he dared to nationalize Iran's oil. The West reinstalled the Shah, ushering in decades of dictatorship backed by the United States, brutal repression, and the eventual Iranian Revolution of 1979. That revolution didn't just happen in a vacuum. It was a direct response to decades of foreign intervention. Since then, the United States has imposed crippling sanctions, funded opposition groups, and assassinated Iranian officials, and surrounded Iran with military bases. Every time Iran tries to assert independence, it's branded a threat. After 9/11, this pattern escalated dramatically. The United States invaded Afghanistan and Iraq under the banner of fighting terrorism, but the prophets told a different story. American oil companies like Exxon, Chevron, and Halliburton, which had then deep ties to Vice President Dick Cheney, secured massive contracts and oil exploration rights, especially in Iraq. Iraq's nationalized oil industry was open to foreign investors for the first time in decades, and billions were made as U.S. corporations took over key reserves. Meanwhile, Afghanistan was viewed as a critical route for proposed pipelines from Central Asia, with lobbying from companies like Unocal dating back to the late 90s. These wars just weren't about retaliation. They were about resource control, and they laid the groundwork for further aggression towards Iran, the last major oil-rich nation in the region not under Western influence. It should also be noted before we continue that the post-9/11 wars were based on massive lies, such as the weapons of mass destruction lie, which has since been completely debunked, and even at the time, the George W. Bush administration knew wasn't true, but they used it to murder and invade countries they had no rights to being in, all for the profit of oil industry. You've probably heard a lot about Iran's supposed nuclear ambitions, but according to most global intelligence assessments, Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. Even U.S. agencies admitted in multiple national intelligence estimates that Iran halted its weapons program years ago. The Iran as a threat line is more about control and security. It gives justification for sanctions, military buildups, and the endless funding to defense contractors. It should be noted that most Middle Eastern and most worldwide surveys asking about what is the greatest threat to world peace or what is the greatest threat to peace in the Middle East, all of them typically say the United States' actions there are the greatest threat. Israel, meanwhile, has had an undeclared nuclear arsenal. This is alleged, by the way. It's very clear they probably do have nuclear weapons, but allegedly they have nuclear weapons. They have occupied Palestinian land for decades, including the current genocide in Gaza. They regularly carry out military action across the region in Lebanon, despite having a ceasefire agreement in Lebanon with Hezbollah, and Syria, continuing to destabilize Syria after the overthrow of Assad, Gaza, where they are committing genocide, and now Iran. They frame it all as self-defense, but who is holding them accountable? The U.S. not only funds Israel to the tune of $3.8 billion a year, it provides diplomatic cover at the UN, vetoing ceasefires and shielding Israel from war crime investigations. So when Israel bombs Iran, it's not just an Israeli decision, it's a U.S. green light. In fact, the United States allows military intelligence from the United States military to work with the IDF to give them ideas of where to strike, who to strike, how to strike, and strategic military mapping, planning out each and every occurrence. So while the Trump administration's current official saying is that it was a unilateral decision by Israel to attack Iran, that can't possibly be true based on historical evidence. The United States had some role in helping helping Israel attacking Iran last night. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The only reason we aren't in a full-scale war with Iran isn't due to wisdom or diplomacy. It's mostly bad timing and political chaos. Had Hillary Clinton won in 2016, many believe we'd already be there. Her foreign policy track record, supporting interventions in Libya and Syria, her hawkish stance on Iran, and our close ties with Israeli leadership suggest a major confrontation was more likely than not. She even said that she would use military action with Iran if they did not agree to the nuclear agreement terms under the Obama administration. But instead, Trump won, and while his administration was unstable, erratic, and often reckless, it also lacked the organizational capacity to launch a sustained war effort. Trump pulled out of the Iranian nuclear deal, assassinated General Soleimani, ramped up sanctions, and he flirted with isolationism, contradicted his own Pentagon, and changed advisors every few months. Notably, Michael Bolton, who reportedly called him an idiot. It's not really relatable to the story, but it's just a fun story in the times that we're in. The chaos might have saved lives, if only by accident. Then on to Biden. We were back to a traditional empire management, but there was one problem. There were too many pots on the stove. The conflict with Ukraine, where the United States government was using Ukraine as a proxy to fight Russia, the genocide in Gaza, where the United States was funding Israel, and the ongoing conflict with Lebanon and Hezbollah and the Houthis in Yemen, Taiwan and the ongoing tensions with China, domestic instability because of the increasing inflation, the ever-present Trump movement, climate crises, and a housing market that is teetering on the edge to this very day. He escalated in nearly every arena but hasn't committed fully to any one. That's not really peace through the Biden administration. It was a political triage. And the desire to strike Iran was there. The rhetoric was there. The weapons and funding were there. What has been missing was the right window. And the window has now opened up. Even before this current wave of conflict, the United States has been steadily ramping hostility towards Iran, often in coordination with or in defense of Israeli strategic aims. Under President Obama, the United States entered the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in 2015, also known as the Iran nuclear deal. It was imperfect, but it created a framework to limit uranium enrichment in Iran in exchange for the United States lifting sanctions on Iran. The international community supported it. Iran complied. Then in 2018, Trump's administration unilaterally withdrew from the deal, despite no evidence of Iranian noncompliance. Sanctions returned, harsher than ever before, and the United States adopted a maximum pressure campaign designed to economically strangle Iran. Food shortages, medicine shortages, and a humanitarian crisis followed, all while Israeli leaders like Netanyahu applauded the move. The hostility didn't stop at economic warfare. In January 2020, the Trump administration ordered the assassination of General Soleimani, a top Iranian military official, via drone strike in Iraq. This wasn't just a provocation, it was an act of war. Iran responded by launching missiles at the United States air bases in Iraq, injuring over 100 troops, while the world held its breath. Even as that moment passed without full-scale retaliation, it set the tone for future Israeli-United States policy: zero diplomacy, maximum aggression. And all of it done under the umbrella of supporting our allies and combating terrorism, terms that conveniently align with Israeli military objectives in the region, and of course, the ongoing United States goal of controlling all of the oil reserves in the Middle East. As of this morning, June 13th, 2025, we are officially teetering on the edge of a regional war. Israel launched Operation Rising Sun, a large-scale aerial assault on Iranian territory. Over 200 aircraft dropped more than 300 precision munitions, targeting Iran's nuclear sites, military leadership, and research facilities. Among the dead are several IRGC generals, as well as 6 nuclear scientists. Civilian casualties are currently in between 12 and 78, and more than 320 are injured, although most numbers are saying that the 78 dead is currently correct. Iran struck back immediately with over 150 ballistic missiles and 100 plus drones targeting military installations and infrastructure in Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Jerusalem. Dozens have been injured. While most of the projectiles were intercepted, this marks the most direct exchange between the two nations in history. The United States response? Well, before the attack, because it's almost like Donald Trump and the United States knew it was going to happen, which they did. They have admitted that. They have not admitted cohesion or unification. They're still saying it was a unilateral attack. What the response pre the attack was to order evacuations of non-military personnel from their bases in the region, Israel, Iraq, and Syria. American troops have been moved into bunkers and particularly vulnerable bases. Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a sharp warning. Iran should not target U.S. interests or personnel. Donald Trump also said that he had knowledge of the attack. He said, "We knew everything. Israel has a lot of lethal equipment and much more to come," meaning that there's more attacks coming. He also, in a statement this morning, said that Iran should make a deal before it's too late, pretty much implying that the United States is more than ready to enter into a full armed conflict with Iran and anyone else in the region, who could be Lebanon, the Houthis, and individual groups in Iraq and Syria. This is all par course, as we've talked about. And it's not about good guys versus bad guys. It's about a power dynamic where the United States continues to back its regional allies, no matter how reckless or brutal, while vilifying any resistance to its dominance. If the goal was peace, we wouldn't be escalating tensions with a country that poses no serious threat to the American people. Iran doesn't have the capacity of launching a strike in the United States. Any terrorist attack that has happened in the United States, whether 9/11 or the Boston Marathon bombing, or if we want to talk about domestic terrorism with the Oklahoma City bombing, or series of mass shootings that happen almost every single month, have not ever been attributed to a country. They've been fringe terrorist groups or white nationalists here. But the truth of the matter is, we would already be in this area had Hillary Clinton won in 2016. And now that Trump's in office, their radical authoritarian view of government, where they have been consistently doing whatever they want since he got into the White House back in January, is now going to escalate even further. We have seen what the Trump administration is allowing the Israelis to do in Gaza. The continuation of genocide and the full support of Israeli taking over the region, and the quote-unquote Trump plan to just reinvigorate the region into some paradise where maybe Palestinians will be let in, but more than likely they'll be left in the Sinai in Egypt, and creating even further regional disaster. And now we're going to see it once again in Iran. This isn't a time for fighting amongst ourselves or ideological differences to really push us against each other. We really have to start working together to demand de-escalation and to get out of the Middle East and to focus on more things that are happening here in the United States at home. Domestically, if we get into another conflict, say with Iran, we can't handle it here in the United States. We're already more than likely, as most economists are saying, getting ready to enter into another recession. We don't have the capability as a people, domestically or foreignly, to withstand more conflict. We're already on the tip of our toes supporting Ukraine, still having military action in Syria and the Yemeni, and our action continually ongoing in Iraq. If this conflict does, as I predict by the end of the year, go from just Israel and Iran with the United States backing Israel and fully supporting their action against them, as we've supported Ukraine against Russia, I fully see this just acting like the Ukrainian war with Russia has gone on. A never-ending conflict where there are no winners and just people die needlessly. However, if the United States gets involved, Iran's going to be destroyed, much like Afghanistan and Iraq were destroyed in the 2000s under the Bush regime, and further destroyed under Obama and then Trump and then Biden as well. Something's got to give at some point, and I don't know what it's going to be. But I do know that if you want to get connected with organizations in your area that are fighting for peace, fighting for the end of genocide, and working to create a more stable world, you can look in the link in the description for the United States Campaign of Palestinian Rights. There you can find organizations near you that are pro-Palestinian, as well as other issues. And you can also donate there. If you want to match my donation, I donate $15 every month. And I hope that you will support that cause. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll talk to you soon.